They want you to speak, to explain, to defend. To be loud enough to be understood, visible enough to be approved, vulnerable enough to be consumed. But the Stoic does something different. He chooses silence. Because in a world where everyone is performing, the one who doesn't need to speak becomes the most powerful voice in the room. Silent stories. Not because stories aren't beautiful, but because most stories today are no longer for truth. They're for attention, for applause, for escape and silence. That sacred, rare silence. It doesn't ask for anything. It just holds. It holds depth, clarity, power. It doesn't try to impress. It simply is. A man who chooses silence over spectacle is a man who has nothing to prove and everything to protect. A Stoic lens in a noisy world. This is not the silence of avoidance. This is not passivity. This is not hiding. This is presence. This is mastery. The silence of a Stoic is deliberate. It's the space between trigger and reaction. It's the pause before the storm. It's where wisdom lives. And today, that kind of silence has never been more necessary. Because we live in a world where social media is no longer just a tool. It's an identity. People don't just post for fun anymore. They post to be seen. They argue to be right. They perform happiness even when their hearts are breaking. But in all that noise, something sacred gets lost. The inner stillness that tells you who you really are when no one else is watching. The Stoics, men like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they lived long before Instagram and algorithms, but their wisdom echoes even louder now. They taught that your peace does not belong to the world, that your value is not up for public debate, that the loudest strength is often silent. In this guide, we return to that wisdom, not with long lectures or moral judgment, but with something softer, deeper. We'll explore how silence becomes your armor, your compass, your quiet resistance in the age of noise. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed by it all, the drama, the pressure, the perfection, this is for you. You don't need to post to prove you're alive. You don't need to reply to protect your worth. You don't need to be louder. You need to be clearer, and that clarity begins in silence. Let's begin. Quietly but powerfully together. Chapter 1. Silence before you react. And so, as we step into the first teaching, let us begin not with noise, but with stillness, because that's where all strength starts, not in what you say, but in what you don't say. Not in how fast you respond, but in how deeply you pause. They want your reaction. Every scroll invites it. A comment, a headline, a post designed to provoke. Someone says something offensive. Someone else flaunts their life as if it were perfect, and suddenly your chest tightens. Your mind races. Your thumbs twitch with urgency to type something, anything. But here, the Stoic pauses. He does not lash back. He does not rush to clap or condemn. He watches. He breathes. He waits. Because he knows what you forget in that heated second. The one who controls your reaction controls you. Epictetus once said, "If someone provokes you, know that it is your judgment that provokes you." And in those few words lies a map out of the trap. A reaction is a chain. A pause is a key. This silence is not weakness. It is discipline. It is your reminder that just because the world is loud, you don't need to be. Just because someone throws a spark, you don't have to become fire. You are allowed to let things pass. You are allowed to say nothing. You are allowed to keep your peace. And there is wisdom in waiting. Because when you respond too soon, it's not you responding. It's your wound, your ego, your fear. But when you wait, something changes, the heat fades, the truth appears. The question shifts from, how do I win this argument, to, is this even worth my breath? Think of silence like a doorway, between impulse and intention, between noise and clarity. You can step through it, and when you do, you come out lighter, not because you avoided something, but because you mastered yourself. There's an old tale about a monk who was insulted by a traveler. The man screamed at him, cursed him, called him a fraud, but the monk just sat still, like stone beside a river. After a long silence, the traveler said, "Have you nothing to say?" And the monk replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, who does it belong to? Let that sink in." Not every insult is yours to carry. Not every invitation to drama needs your RSVP. Not every post deserves your energy. On social media, silence is a superpower. They expect the retweet, the rebuttal, the fire emoji. But when you offer none of it, you reclaim your space. You become the one who sees through the game. You exit the stage and become the watcher in the wings. And this silence is not cold, it is kind. It is a kindness to yourself. It is space for your nervous system to settle. It is breath before battle. And often, when the smoke clears, there's nothing left to fight. So how do you practice this kind of silence? You start with awareness. The next time something triggers you online, stop. Don't comment, don't click. Don't share, just sit with the discomfort. Feel it rise. And then let it fall, because feelings are like waves. They pass if you don't chase them. You can even whisper this to yourself: "I don't need to respond to everything." That phrase alone can save you hours of regret, dozens of arguments, and parts of your soul you've been giving away for free. The truth is this: silence is not the absence of action. It is an action, a conscious choice, a courageous stand. And in today's world, where everyone is so reactive, so quick to prove, so desperate to be heard, the one who waits before speaking, the one who pauses before posting, becomes rare, becomes different, becomes strong. So remember this: the next time your heart races with the urge to speak, pause. Let silence speak first. You might be surprised by what it teaches you and what it helps you walk away from. Because sometimes the highest form of strength isn't saying the perfect thing, it's saying nothing at all. Chapter 2: Silence to hear yourself. And after we've learned to pause before the world pulls us in, the next step is even more tender, more inward. Because silence is not only a shield from the noise outside, it is a doorway, a way back home. We are losing the sound of our own voice, not our literal voice, but that quiet one inside. The voice that speaks when the world goes still, the one that doesn't shout, doesn't boast, doesn't beg for likes. It simply asks, softly, "Are you still there?" Every day, social media pulls us outward, toward the lives of others, their opinions, their goals, what they bought, what they achieved, what they want us to envy. And if we are not careful, we begin to wear their dreams like masks. We confuse their path for ours. We wake up chasing what someone else defined as success. But the Stoics warn us, the greatest danger is not losing the world, it's losing yourself in the world. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "People look for retreats for themselves, but nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." He didn't write that for monks in the mountains. He wrote that for himself, a Roman emperor surrounded by war, politics, demands, and distraction. If he could go inward, so can we. But to hear that voice again, you must get quiet. Not just unplug from your phone, but plug back into your heart. takes intention. Try this just once a day for even 5 minutes. Sit in silence. No scrolling, no background noise, no checking who liked your post. Just breathe. Let the dust settle. Let the mental traffic slow. And then ask gently, what am I feeling today? Not what you're performing, not what others expect, but what's true, raw, unfiltered. That silence becomes a sacred space, a place where your real self starts whispering again. Sometimes you'll hear confusion, and that's okay. Confusion is not failure, it is the beginning of clarity. Sometimes you'll hear pain, and that's okay too, because only when we stop running do we feel where it hurts. And sometimes you'll hear your soul, steady, grounded, waiting, like an old friend saying, I missed you. You are not here to be an echo of others. You are not here to live for applause. You are not a highlight reel, a brand, a performance. You are a living soul, a sacred breath in a noisy world. And the more silence you allow in, the clearer that soul becomes. The world will tell you otherwise, that you must keep up. That if you're not visible, you don't exist. That you should share everything, prove everything, explain everything. But the Stoic smiles gently at that noise. Because he knows the strongest oak grows in stillness, the deepest rivers make the least sound. So make time for yourself in silence, not just to rest, but to remember. Remember who you were before the world told you what you should be. Remember what you love, not what gets you followers. Remember your values, not your metrics. And from that silence, begin again. Walk into your day no longer pulled by the winds of what's trending, but rooted in what's timeless, your own truth. Because the most important conversation you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. And you can't hear it until you get quiet. Let that be your practice. Let that be your refuge. In the end, it's not the volume of your voice that shapes your path. It's the clarity of your heart. And clarity always begins in silence. Chapter 3. Silence over comparison. And once you've returned to your own voice, heard it, trusted it, remembered it, there comes another test. It's quieter, more subtle, but if you're not watchful, it will hollow you from the inside. It's the whisper of comparison. They don't shout it at you. They don't have to. You feel it creeping in when you scroll, when someone shares their dream house, their perfect partner, their toned body, their picture-perfect joy. You weren't even feeling bad before. But now you feel behind, less than, not enough. And that's how it works. Comparison doesn't start with bitterness. It starts with silence that isn't your own. The kind that settles in your chest after seeing someone else's version of success. But the Stoic knows that is not your silence, that is someone else's noise echoing inside you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, it is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live. And we too must remember, comparison is not living, it's watching, measuring, shrinking. You were not made to be a mirror of another life. You were made to be soil, to grow, to deepen, to root. When you compare, you uproot yourself. You leave your own garden unattended while staring over the fence. And what grows there, on their side, may look lush. But you don't see the weeds. You don't feel the droughts. You don't hear the silent battles behind the smiles. And here is the deeper danger. Comparison doesn't just steal your joy, it steals your silence. It fills the stillness within you with a voice that says, you should be more. You should be like them. But the Stoic chooses differently. He tends his own ground. He doesn't measure his life by another man's harvest. He asks, have I been honest? Have I been present? Am I growing? And that's enough. There is a story told among the desert wanderers. Two travelers find two wells. One is deeper, one is wider, one seems easier to draw from. The other takes time, patience, quiet work. Most people rush to the wide well. They praise its surface, but soon the water dries. The wiser traveler stays with the deeper one, and though he must wait, though the rope must reach farther, he finds what lasts. You are that well. And silence is the rope that helps you draw from your own depth. So when you find yourself tempted to compare, pause, breathe. Come back to your center. Remind yourself you are not behind. You are not failing. You are unfolding, and that unfolding takes time. The Stoics never praised the loudest. They praised the most rooted. The man who walks his own path, even if no one claps for him. You don't need a perfect photo. You don't need a flashy win. You only need one thing: to be true to yourself in silence without applause. Because real growth happens unseen. And real peace doesn't post about itself. The next time comparison creeps in, do this. Close your eyes. Place your hand on your chest. Say softly, "This is my pace. This is my story." Let silence hold that truth for you. Let it keep you grounded while the world races by. Because the man who is content in his lane, the man who doesn't measure himself by others, is already free. And freedom once again begins in silence. Chapter 4. Silence in Drama. Once you've turned your back on comparison and returned to your own path, a different kind of storm will try to follow you, not from within, but from the world around you. And that storm wears many faces: gossip, provocation, public shaming, petty attacks cloaked as jokes. This, dear listener, is the realm of drama. Drama feeds on noise. It grows in comment threads, whispers, and passive-aggressive captions. It seeks your reaction, not because it needs truth, but because it craves attention. But the Stoic walks differently. He walks through the storm untouched, not because it doesn't sting, but because he chooses not to add wind to it. Let them talk. Let them twist the tale. Let them throw their shadows. You are not here to argue with every fool who speaks your name. You are here to master yourself. Seneca once said, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." Yet he didn't mean we should collapse. He meant we should rise, not by lashing out, but by letting go. Drama only survives if you feed it. Every time you respond to that baited message, that sly dig, that public insult, you water a weed. And soon enough it grows roots in your chest. But if you let it pass, if you do nothing but breathe, you starve it. You remind it who truly holds power. There's an old tale from the northern woods. A man was insulted by every traveler who passed his cabin. They mocked his quiet ways, laughed at his plain clothes, even cursed his name, but he never replied. Never fought back. One day a child asked him, "Why don't you say something? Don't you want to defend yourself?" The man smiled and said, "Because if I open my mouth for every echo, I'll never hear the wind. That is what silence gives you." Not weakness, but clarity. Not avoidance, but peace. Because when you stay silent, something extraordinary happens. The people watching begin to see. They see the one who yelled, and they see the one who didn't need to. And they know without a word who truly held grace. You don't need to prove your side of the story. You don't need to repost a screenshot. You don't need to explain why you walked away. Walk quietly. With dignity, with stillness in your spine, because your peace is not a debate. It is your home, and you don't open your home to every passerby. The Stoics believed that your character is your defense. Live in such a way that when others speak falsely of you, no one believes it. When the drama rises, Slow down, feel the urge to respond, and choose not to. Not because you're afraid, but because you are no longer available for chaos. Let them speak in circles. Let them drop vague quotes, half-truths, and fiery words. You have more important things to tend to: your inner garden, your soul, your silence, because nothing confuses chaos more than calm. Nothing unsettles the one who gossips more than your steady breath, and nothing shames the one who attacks more than the grace of the one who will not strike back. So the next time you are pulled into drama, remember this: you are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to say nothing. You are allowed to guard your light, and silence will guard it with you. Not as a wall, but as a mirror, reflecting everything and needing nothing in return. Because the one who doesn't react is not empty. He is full of strength, of wisdom, of quiet fire. And in a world hungry for conflict, the man who stays silent becomes untouchable. Chapter 5. Silence reveals truth. And now, once you've chosen not to enter the fires others build, there comes a quieter invitation, one that doesn't demand your words, but your awareness. It's the kind of seeing that only silence allows, because the truth, more often than not, does not speak loudly. It whispers, and you will only hear it if you've grown still enough inside. In the age of social media, truth is dressed up. It wears makeup, filters, clever captions, and timing. People post joy while aching. They share inspiration while feeling lost. They perform strength while silently falling apart. But here's the hidden cost. When everyone's pretending, you start to wonder if you're the only one who's tired, uncertain, or behind. You're not. You've just been looking through the lens of noise, and the noise was never made to help you see clearly. Silence is your clarity, not just because it gives you rest, but because it strips away illusion. The Stoics didn't scroll, but they watched. They observed the world and saw what lay beneath the surface. Epictetus taught, appearances are not the truth. Focus on what things are, not what they seem. And in today's terms, he might have said, don't believe every highlight reel. Don't confuse polished posts with peaceful hearts. Don't let what's loud fool you into thinking it's real. There is a story from the forests of old. A hunter once chased a silver fox that vanished in the mist. He followed the sounds, rustling leaves, snapping branches, certain he was close. But when he paused, truly paused, he realized the sound wasn't ahead, it was behind, a trick of the wind. A reflection in the fog. The moment he stopped chasing the noise, he found the trail, and then the truth. That's what silence does. It stops the chase, and in that stillness you see who's real and who's performing. You see where your own energy is leaking. You notice how certain motivational posts actually leave you feeling hollow. You catch the sadness in the eyes behind the smile. You recognize when someone's presence is loud, but their soul is tired. Silence gives you discernment. And with discernment comes freedom. Because when you can tell the difference between performance and authenticity, you no longer crave what they have. You no longer chase shadows. You no longer feel behind, because you know what's real cannot be rushed, and what's lasting doesn't need to be shown. This isn't about judging others. It's about not abandoning yourself. The Stoics weren't cynical. They were clear-eyed. They didn't mock beauty. They just refused to be deceived by it. And you can do the same. You can look at someone's curated joy and smile, not with envy, but with understanding. You can bless them without wanting their path, because your peace is not performance-based. It doesn't depend on followers, filters, or fleeting applause. Your peace grows in truth, and truth is quiet. It's found in how your breath settles when you stop scrolling, in how your heart softens when you step outside, in the way your shoulders relax when you stop pretending to be okay. So, let this be your practice. Spend time in silence, not just to protect yourself, but to see. To see through what's false, to recognize what's real, to feel your own truth rising, wordless, ancient, and yours alone. Because once you've seen clearly, no one can sell you something false again. No one can make you feel small by comparison. No one can shake your foundation with a glittering illusion. And the clearer your inner sight becomes, the more peaceful your path feels, because you are no longer chasing the noise. You are walking with the truth. And the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs your silence to be heard. Chapter 6. Silence to save energy. Once you've learned to see through the glitter and noise, to recognize truth beneath illusion, there arises a deeper challenge. Not of clarity, but of capacity. Because even the wisest eye will grow weary if it's constantly watching. This is where silence becomes not just a guide, but a guardian. There's a cost to constant connection, not always in money, but in mental clutter, in fractured attention, in drained spirit. You don't always see it at first. You just feel a little more impatient, a little more restless, a little more easily irritated by everything and everyone. And suddenly, you're exhausted, and you don't know why. But the Stoic knows why. It's not always your life that's draining you. Sometimes it's the noise you invited in, the comment thread you read all the way through, the argument you didn't need to join, the video that pushed your emotions higher then left you empty. Every word you consume takes something. Every post you scroll past, every reaction you suppress adds weight. It's invisible, but it's heavy. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary?" That one question can save you more energy than any coffee ever could. Because the truth is, most of what drains you is not yours to carry. And silence, beautiful silence, helps you lay it down. There's a story from the old country. A woman carried water from the river to her cottage each morning. She used 2 wooden buckets, one full, the other cracked. Every day she arrived home with less than she started with, not because she wasn't working hard, but because she never noticed the slow, steady leak. And so it is with us. We wonder why we're tired, why we're anxious, why we feel like we've been giving all day but have nothing left. But the leak is there, dripping quietly through every unnecessary reply, every reactive scroll, every attempt to defend or prove or fix. Silence plugs the cracks. It slows the leak. It doesn't mean disappearing from life. It means showing up with intention, choosing when to speak, when to share, and just as importantly, when to let it pass. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to have an opinion about every trend. You don't owe your energy to every digital fire that wants to pull you in. Your energy is your essence. Guard it like sacred fire. Feed it only what keeps it warm. Withdraw it from what leaves you cold. And yes, sometimes that means silence, not as retreat, but as renewal. So how do you reclaim this energy? You begin with small refusals. Don't explain yourself when no explanation is needed. Don't answer the message right away. Don't chase the reaction that won't matter tomorrow. Instead, breathe. Sit with the urge to jump in. Feel it pass. Feel what remains. Stillness, stability, strength. Because the person who is constantly performing burns out. But the one who knows when to pause, when to go quiet, walks farther, walks deeper. The Stoic saves his strength for what matters. He doesn't waste it on noise. He spends it on meaning. So ask yourself, gently, where is my energy going? And if you find it scattered across apps, threads, and headlines, call it back. Pull your soul inward, turn down the volume, close the door, and let silence fill the room. Because in that silence, you do not disappear, you recharge. And that, dear listener, is how you begin to walk through the world again, not depleted, but restored. Chapter 7. Silence for Sacred Moments. And now, after reclaiming your energy through silence, after learning to guard what drains you, you begin to notice something gentler, something more tender than strength. It is the sacred, and it only reveals itself when we stop turning every moment into content. There are parts of your life that aren't meant to be shared, not because they're secret, but because they are holy. A morning sunlight falling across your kitchen floor, a quiet smile between you and someone you love, the way your heart softens when your dog rests its head on your lap. These moments whisper to your soul, and silence is how you keep them alive. But we live in a world that tells us, if it isn't posted, it didn't happen. This belief steals the sanctity of the present, because the moment you try to capture something, you stop being in it. You become the observer instead of the participant. The Stoics understood the difference. They didn't write to impress. They wrote to remember, to reflect, to return inward. They knew that some things are richer when they stay unspoken. Seneca once said, "A happy life is one which is in accordance with its own nature." And nature, you'll notice, doesn't broadcast its beauty. It just exists, quietly magnificent. There's a tale told along the riverside of a traveler who walked for days, searching for the perfect view. He crossed forests, climbed cliffs, chased sunsets, until one evening he stopped beside a stream and sat in stillness. No camera, no sketch pad, just breath, just presence. And in that moment he wept. Not because of what he saw, but because he finally felt it. Felt the world instead of capturing it. Felt himself in it, not above it. That is the gift of sacred moments. They ask for your attention, not your audience. The hug you don't post, the dinner you don't document, the walk you take without checking your phone. These are offerings to your soul. Small, quiet, and deeply nourishing, and silence becomes the container, the gentle boundary that keeps meaning from being diluted. Not everything you experience should be turned into a story. Some things are just for you, for your heart to carry quietly, for your memory to hold without edits or applause. The Stoic life is not about withdrawal. It's about reverence. Reverence for what is real, what is honest, what is fleeting and fragile. And when you choose not to share, not to explain, not to seek validation, you are saying to life, "I see you." And that is enough. So make space for moments that no one else sees. Sit with them, honor them. Let joy be private sometimes. Let awe be yours alone. You do not owe your intimacy to the timeline. You do not owe your healing to the algorithm. What you live becomes sacred when you allow it to stay untouched. So the next time something stirs your soul, don't reach for your phone. Reach for your breath. Let silence wrap around it. Let it stay whole. Because not everything that matters needs to be witnessed. Some things just need to be felt. And when you protect those moments, not from others but for yourself, you return to something ancient, something the modern world forgot. You return to presence. You return to reverence. You return to stillness. And in that stillness, life becomes poetry again, not for show, but for your soul. Chapter 8. Silence to grow stronger. After you've learned to protect sacred moments, you may find yourself craving something more. Not just stillness for peace, but stillness for power, or a kind of inner strength that doesn't need display or validation. And that, dear listener, is where silence becomes transformation. Growth does not happen in the spotlight. It happens in the soil, beneath the surface, in the dark, quiet places no one claps for. You may not always see it, but silence held long enough becomes a forge, a place where old patterns melt and new strength is shaped. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look there." And that spring, that source, it rises in silence, because when you stop performing for the world, you start preparing yourself for life. Sometimes you need to step away to come back stronger. That's not retreat, that's wisdom. The world may tell you, stay active. Stay visible, stay relevant, but relevance fades, and your soul was never meant to be content. Your soul was meant to evolve. There's a story from long ago. A blacksmith had a favorite blade. Strong, sharp, admired by many. But after years of use, it dulled. Instead of discarding it, he placed it deep into the fire once more. Not because it had failed, but because it was worthy of being made new again. And when it returned from the flames, reshaped and retempered, it became something more powerful than before, because it had endured the silence of the forge. You are that blade. And silence is your fire. Sometimes you need to disappear from the noise, not to hide, but to heal. Not to run, but to remember who you are, beneath all the filters, the praise, the pressure. Take time offline. Close the app. Let the world go on without your voice for a while, and in that quiet, write, walk, pray, reflect, feel everything you've been too distracted to feel, and release what no longer fits the shape of your soul. True strength is not built in public, it's earned when no one's watching. When you face yourself in silence and choose not to look away, when you let go of who you thought you had to be and make room for who you're really becoming. And here's the miracle of it. When you return, you won't need to announce yourself. Your presence will say what your posts never could. You'll walk differently, speak less, but with more weight. Care more deeply, but for fewer things. You'll carry the kind of peace that unsettles people, because they'll know you went somewhere they didn't. You went inward, and now you've come back forged. The Stoic path is not about perfection. It's about purification. And purification requires fire. And fire requires silence. So the next time the world tells you to stay visible, choose something rarer. Choose transformation. Choose to grow in silence, because when your roots grow deep enough, the winds don't matter, the storms don't move you. And the opinions of the crowd feel like a whisper compared to the truth inside your chest. Let silence be your sanctuary. Let it break you open. Let it make you whole, and when you emerge, not louder but wiser, not prouder but steadier, you'll understand what few ever will, that the strongest version of you isn't the one they see, it's the one that was shaped in silence. And now, walks in peace. Let silence lead you home. And now, dear listener, you've walked through 8 chambers of silence, each one softer than the last, but none without strength. You've learned to pause before reacting, to listen inward before chasing outward, to let go of comparison, drama, and illusions, to protect your energy, to treasure the sacred, to grow, not in the spotlight, but in the stillness of your own becoming. This is the way of the Stoic. Not cold, not distant, but rooted. Present. Undisturbed by the noise of a world always wanting more from you, because you've already found enough within. And in a world that rewards shouting, speed, and spectacle, your silence will confuse them. Because your silence means you are no longer playing their game. You're walking your own path, not for applause, not for attention, but for truth. So the next time your finger hovers over the reply, the post, the reaction, pause. Breathe, return to the quiet within. Because what they don't understand, but you now do, is that the most powerful thing you can ever say is to say nothing at all. If this message stirred something in you, don't rush to share it. Sit with it. Let it echo. Let it become part of your silence. And when you're ready, quietly pass it on. Someone you love may need the same reminder. In a world addicted to noise, silence is your sacred rebellion. Until next time, walk slow, breathe deep, and let silence lead you home. This is the Stoic philosophy, and your peace is your power.